Captain Brant is here. No, wait. Captain Brant is here, and his crew is ready to take on these waves. And by his crew, I mean the likes of Changli, Sanhua, Carlotta, Jinhsi, and so many others. With such a versatile character, you want to employ quick swap tactics. Today, we will be exploring every quick swap option with Brant, so that you can weave his swashbuckling rope swinging gameplay into your daily sessions. My name is Void Enigma, and it is my pleasure to share with you a Brant quick swap guide. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's begin. If you want to know the basics of characters like Brant, Carlotta, and Changli, then make sure to check out the quick swap guide playlist in the description. Brant quick swap is a little unique, mainly due to the fact that he's an aerial unit. He pairs really well with characters like Changli, of course. Now, there's a big difference in how you actually want to quick swap with Brant. When you do on-field Brant with 0 quick swap, with Sanhua buffing his damage or something similar, then you normally want to actually do his aerial heavy attacks by holding down the attack button and keeping him on field. You can get in some great damage this way, but the thing about Brant's heavy attack is, it completely disengages him from the enemy when you swap off into a quick swap. This makes his heavy attack very anti-quick swap. Because of this, you generally don't want to use this when you're actually using quick swap teams. The goal of quick swap is to have 2 characters doing an action at one time, so you do not want to use his heavy attack. Let's talk about the goal of quick swaps with Brant. His forte. His forte is an insanely high damaging attack, and you want to charge it ASAP. Firstly, you start his combat with his liberation because this is going to grant him a huge buff and make him fill up that gauge quickly. I found the best way to quick swap with Brant while you charge his forte is to do basic attack 2, offering you some decent damage and is able to be used completely off field. As soon as you begin to go down on Brant, no, not in that way, oh god, pay attention. Then you swap off to your next character and perform their action. If you're quick enough, when you go back to Brant, you'll actually be in midair, allowing you to follow up again with basic attack 2. You don't want to swap too fast though, as you mess up the rhythm of his quick swap. So an example rotation is something like this. Changli Liberation, Flame Sacrifice, Shorekeeper Skill, Echo, Brant Liberation, basic attack 2, Changli Skill, Brant Basic 2, Changli True Sight Grounded Slash, Shorekeeper or your third character weaving in some basic attacks or doing whatever they need, Brant Jump or Skill Basic 2, Changli Skill, Brant Basic 2, Changli Grounded True Sight Slash, Shorekeeper Skill, Echo Liberation, Changli Intro gaining her a True Sight Charge, back to Brant Enhanced Anchor Skill using his outro into Changli, Changli Intro, Flame Sacrifice, Liberation, Flame Sacrifice, back to Brant ult, and repeat. If you're quick enough, you should be able to complete 2 Brant Changli rotations during the Shorekeeper ult window, which is insane. I'll talk about that rotation in the Changli portion of this video, but once you're able to complete this, then you've achieved mastery with a Changli Brant quick swap. A couple of notes here that I actually want to mention to ease in the Brant quick swap gameplay. If Brant swaps in and he's not in the air and you don't actually want to race her as resident skill, simply jump. Hell, sometimes I forget to even use his resident skill half the time, I just jump instead. Now, talking about Brant and Changli quick swap, this isn't the only way to play them, and after the first rotation, you'll have a lot more freedom to just do whatever you want. Essentially, it's really free how you rotate, you just don't want to waste stacks or charges on Changli, and always outro from Brant to Changli when Changli is at a bare minimum of 2 stacks. Otherwise, you're going to waste your entire DPS window, because Changli is just very slow at building stacks when she has 0 or 1. If you run into trouble swapping, then that means that you're messing up the timing. It's a rhythm game with Brant, rather than fast-paced quick swap with other characters, so it feels a bit different, but not too difficult. Brant does have some serious issues with interruption resistance, especially when he's in air, so an important thing is to quick swap early if you feel like you're in danger. You could also just kind of idle in air if you feel like the enemy is going to hit so that you can actually avoid taking damage altogether. When you swap off from the other character, then your current character on field is going to be completely safe. But you also want to dodge when you swap in because that new character can definitely get hit. The biggest and easiest maneuver with Brant is to quick swap his forte payout, Return from Ashes. You can start this enhanced skill and then immediately swap off, and Brant will do his entire animation while you control the next character. It's kind of funny to see that halfway through your character's attack, Brant drops a giant ass random anchor right onto the target. Also, you want to make sure that his concerto gauge is filled enough before you drop his Return from Ashes. This is because if you don't get that outro to be immediately ready, you will not be able to immediately return to Brant. Even if you mess up, you can, however, swap back to Brant to immediately perform his outro to buff the next character. That's one or too many immediatelys. Well, you can immediately like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. It's the best way to support the channel, and it's the best way for me to see your support. Thank you so much. Now, big important note here. With the way that buffs are set up in this game, Chun-Li gains massive buffs from Brant and Shorekeeper, but if you swap off, you actually completely lose that outro buff. Because of this, you don't want to quick swap early when you have an outro buff on these characters. The second you get that attack off though, get out of there. The same applies to Brant when he plays with characters like Sanhua or Roccia to buff him. He wants that basic attack buff on his anchor. If you swap off too early, then you're going to lose that buff. It's unfortunate, and I wish that they would actually change the way that the outro buffs works, but it is what it is. Also, a side note, during the first rotation, you can weave in Brant's heavy attack since he does want his concerto to be filled a little more, and this will help you smooth out the rotation, but it's definitely not necessary. The thing about this rotation is that it really runs off of feeling, and it's not as strict as I pointed out. There are many ways to mix this up, and you should take the liberty of exploring more options because it might work better for you. As you learn the proper way to quick swap, you may find yourself with more true sight charges than you expect, or more stacks than you expect. And it's actually fine to use Chun-Li's Flame Sacrifice without Brant's outro buff. However, when you're quick swapping and you come into Chun-Li after Brant's outro buff and you have 0 stacks with her intro skill, then you do not want to follow up with a true sight charge. Instead, when she actually does her follow-up aerial attack and lunges back a little bit, immediately activate her liberation, putting her on the floor, then during that animation, hold down the heavy attack to use her flame sacrifice. This allows her to store that charge, and after that combo you can lunge forward and gain that stack. While we're talking about Chun-Li, let's talk about Brant and Chun-Li quick swap, as if we weren't already doing that. I gave you the basics of the rotation earlier, so be sure to watch it to see the general rotation, but there's more to talk about with Chun-Li. Firstly, to learn exactly how to play Chun-Li and perfectly quick swap with her, check out the Chun-Li guide on screen here, but you do promise that you'll come back and watch this video, right? Cool, so let's get into some tips for Brant and Chun-Li quick swap. Depending on the team, and there's a lot of them, you can actually use Chun-Li to buff up Brant and then Brant to buff up Chun-Li, but the general rotations won't change too much and it should go something like this. Support, into Brant, into Chun-Li, and then back to Brant to use his liberation, then back to the support, and then you repeat that process, while of course quick swapping. With Chun-Li being an aerial character, Brant can perform aerial basic attack 2, and swap back to Chun-Li. Then Chun-Li can use her resonant skill, and swap back to Brant. You can chain these two together to let Chun-Li get 2 easy stacks, because when Chun-Li goes back in, she'll immediately attack, getting her a stack. When you're ready to actually outro with Brant and you activate his return from actions, you get a few options with Chun-Li. You generally want to use that intro skill, follow it up with a resonance skill, and then lunge forward to get 2 more stacks. But if you actually have an extra stack, then you actually don't have to use that resonance skill. But you still can, and I'll talk about that a little later. If you find that you intro in and you're now at 3 stacks and you don't have a resonance skill, then you could just plunge and use basic attack 3 and 4 and then lunge right back in to get the 4th stack and do the shame spiel. From here, her outro should be ready, and then you can actually use it to go into Brant, use his liberation, and continue gameplay. Before you start to learn more gameplay, master this loop first. Now for the masterclass on the Chun-Li, Brant, and Shorekeeper team. Firstly, start with Chun-Li's liberation and then flame sacrifice. By the time you get back to it, it'll be right back up, so don't worry about it. Then you do normal quick swap stuff between Brant and Shorekeeper. I tend to go into Shorekeeper first to utilize her echo buff, and then I go to Brant to use his liberation. Swap between basic aerial attack 2 and Chun-Li resonant skill until Chun-Li has 2 charges, meaning You do this twice. Then, you swap to Shorekeeper to fill her concerto to about 75%, which should be very much available because you'll be able to use her resonant skill. From this point on, all conditions should be set. Changli has 2 stacks of Inflamement, Brant has his concerto gauge to about 75%, and Shorekeeper is ready to loose and activate her liberation. Now for some sweaty plays. Activate Shorekeeper's liberation and start the DPS timer because we are about to do a lot of it. Firstly, always intro into Changli whenever you get the chance. Never intro into anyone else when you're with Changli because she gets so much benefits from using her intro skill. This will save her resonant skill. After you gain that true sight and are in the air, do not follow up with Chun-Li's resonant skill yet. Swap back to Brant. Use Brant's Return from Ashes and then outro into Chun-Li. From here, it's important to actually do the intro resonant skill combo, but do not follow it up with a true sight slash when you hit the floor. Instead, as you're plunging, hold down the heavy attack and cast Flame Sacrifice. Then Chun-Li's Liberation, then another Flame Sacrifice. Then, use the true sight slash to gain a stack. After that, back to Brant. Brant will use his Liberation and then basic attack 2, then you go back to Chun-Li to use her resonant skill. Swap back to Brant to use his basic attack 2 again, then, if you did it correctly, Chun-Li will be on the floor and she'll do her grounded true sight slash. You'll then swap to Shorekeeper, who will be on the floor, activate her skill and echo, giving you that extra buff. In this sequence of events, you swap to and from Chun-Li about 6 times. Chun-Li has 2 stacks of Inflamement again, and Brant is mostly filled with his Forte and Concerto, and Shorekeeper has used her Echo to get extra energy. So wait, we're back at the original conditionals, aren't we? Except, we still have about 5 seconds left for the Shorekeeper liberation. Let's execute the same steps again. Brant uses his enhanced resonant skill, Return from Ashes. Chun-Li uses her intro resonant skill while holding down the heavy attack to do a flame sacrifice. This is the ideal situation and it is hard to pull off and you really need to play properly. We won't be able to get another liberation during this rotation, but still we were able to get off a flame sacrifice and then set up Brant to do more damage and restart the whole rotation. That is the masterclass Chun-Li Brant Shorekeeper QUICKSWAP combo. Every other character with Brant is a bit tricky to play since Brant is mostly in the air, but there are some notable exceptions to this case. Jinhsi and Brant aren't that compatible, but they can work together. Since I don't have Jinhsi, I can't really speak much on them, but Jinhsi has some aerial attacks that might have great synergy with Brant. Plus, Brant buffs resonant skill damage with his outro. Sadly, Brant doesn't offer Jinhsi any coordinated attacks, so his buff to her won't be that appealing since Jinhsi will never maximize her resonant skill. Still, a fun team to play around with. Carlotta, on the other hand, her entire kit screams I can quick swap. You can easily quick swap her resonant skill, her enhanced heavy attack, and every other part of her kit. For the most part, you weave in the same sequence of attacks while letting Carlotta gain her Forte gauge through her resonant skill and using her enhanced heavy attack to follow up with. When Brant fills up his Forte gauge and his outro skill is good to go alongside it, you go into Carlotta and you unleash your liberation with a resonant skill damage buff. He can compete with Zheji for a sub DPS and bring Carlotta's liberation to insane heights, but Zheji will always be the better option because her outro buff is just so much better. Fun team though, however, so test them out if you actually really enjoy these two. The first mate of Brant's crew is Roccia, and she is a character that buffs basic attack damage, so she can make an excellent sub DPS with Brant. She actually brings Brant to main DPS caliber. You can quick swap in between her heavy attack plunges, but it's kinda weird to time. It's not super quick swap friendly because of how quickly Roccia gets her Concerto, so it's more of a hyper carry team. With that being said though, it's phenomenal when put into works. This is one of Brant's best teams, especially if you want to use them as a main carry, but there is one other character that works very similarly, if not better. Sanhua is a character that works really well with Brant. She can outro at an insane rate and buff Brant's entire kit. You can always use Sanhua in a Brant team thanks to Brant consolidating healing and shielding. Essentially, you could do the skill, liberation, hold down the click to go up in the gauge, and then swap onto Brant. It's that simple. Another thing to note is that you can hold down this heavy attack and then as soon as you let it go, swap off. She won't gain her Concerto instantly, so when you actually swap back to Sanhua, she'll immediately be ready to go into Brant. She is great for hyper carry Brant, she's great for Brant buffing other characters, she's just a great character in the team and that's why they actually recommend this team for Brant. Sanhua is just insane for quick swap. Now let's talk about the fiery gunslinger Chixia, the main leader to the Brant and Changli team, and I spoke a lot about them in the previous videos. First thing I want to admit, Shorekeeper is much better. However, this team does not fall far behind. If your Shorekeeper is occupied in another team, then a Chixia-led team will do a lot of damage, and it actually starts to out-damage Shorekeeper at the start of the rotation, but overall, Shorekeeper would definitely help Brant and Changli do way more damage. This becomes closer if Chixia is at S6, granting a team-wide basic attack damage buff, which will help Brant even more. When you lead with Chixia, you want to make sure that you get off 2 resonant skills during the whole entire quick swap spiel with Chixia during the combo. You can achieve this by swapping to Chixia when Changli does her True Sight grounded slash. Remember that after swapping with Changli and you use a resonant skill and she hits the floor, then when you swap back to her, she'll do a grounded True Sight. This is the time when you want to swap to Chixia so that she can get off a resonant skill and fill up her gauge by a lot to get some bullets. You always want Chixia at full gauge when you swap into her, so let's quick swap with Brant and Changli until Changli has 2 to 3 stacks and Brant is about ready. Then, Brant anchor outro onto Changli, then Changli's entire combo, heavy, liberation, heavy, then Chixia to Daka Daka a mofo until they stop screaming. Follow up with a liberation with Chixia, and now you've completed the entire rotation. You do want to follow it with another volley of bullets from Chixia, but that's mainly for energy purposes. And when you intro, you actually want to intro into Changli, as it's much more beneficial than introing into Brant, but Brant will definitely get the buff to follow up with the other portions of his kit. Man, Brant is fun on a lot of teams, and he will be a vital character for some future aerial teams. His quick swap gameplay is insanely fun and is actually not even that hard to pull off. It's more of a rhythm game rather than a fast-paced press button game. I haven't even gone over all of his teams, but rather most of his teams, or all of the teams that make sense initially. I wouldn't be surprised if some new tech comes out later that makes him insanely fun with other characters, but it truly shows that Brant's a character that you get to have fun, not just have record times. I hope you have an easy time getting our captain, and happy quick swapping. We are so close to 8K subscribers, so I'd really like to thank you all for this achievement. The 10K milestone is so close, so please subscribe to the channel and like this video. I got a special video in store for you for the 10K milestone, so the quicker we get there, the earlier you get to see it. This has been Void Enigma, and until next time, Enigma out.